Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. In my X number of videos that I've made, I think I've made 300, there have been quite a few devoted to Sanders. There's a reason for it. I believe Sanders is somewhat of a sea change in regards to American politics. I know some other YouTubers have a different feeling of Sanders and get it across in very energetic terms. Now, some of those complaints are perfectly warranted. You've heard me make some of those complaints. I've ranged on Sanders everywhere from, oh my God, I love the guy, to, oh my God, Sanders is a company man. He's sheepdogging for the Democratic Party, and he's a problem. Whether Sanders is on board or not, sometimes it's kind of irrelevant. The effect that he's had in American politics is significant. 8 years ago, single payer wasn't even on the table. We couldn't even get public option on the table. Obama was talking about it, but when he got office, dude, shuffled it away, never to be seen or heard from again. Completely impossible. With Obama, you got the most progressive president you would ever get in your lifetime. Well, that's not a deal we're willing to make anymore. That's not a compromise we're willing to make. We got the worst case scenario. The Democratic Party has lost everything. State, Senate, Supreme Court, presidency, state legislatures. They've lost it all. It's time for the adults to take over. And by adults, I mean the people who actually have values and who actually wants to get shit done for the better in the country. And yes, I'm making a statement that they don't necessarily want to get things done for the better in the country. They work in the interest of their donors. I'm talking about people who work in the interest of people. I'm talking about a paradigm shift. Now, the paradigm shift I'm talking about doesn't, again, necessarily have to include Sanders. It's kicked off to some degree by what Sanders kicked off. This came out in, what is this, Politico? Yeah, Politico. I love this. I absolutely love this. Sanders litmus test alarms Democrats. This is awesome for all sorts of reasons, but I want to read some of this because it's amazing. House and Senate Democrats have wondered for months whether Bernie Sanders supporters might choose to focus their energy on launching primary challenges to moderates in 2018. They're about to get an answer. Sanders has decided the moment is right to launch his proposal for the single-payer healthcare insurance system that has helped form the backbone of his presidential message. Democrats who don't get behind it could find themselves on the wrong end of the most energetic wing of the party, as well as the once and possible future presidential candidate who serves as his figurehead. Oh, this gets better. And they're right, by the way. They're right. That's Cory Booker. Cory Booker was mauled by a bunch of rabid progressives when he came out and torpedoed Bernie Sanders' drug bill. It is a litmus test. It's a litmus test for me. It's a litmus test for everybody I know. It's a litmus test for everybody I communicate with online. It's a litmus test. Yes, I'm sitting here in this wooden tower of sorts. But certainly you realize I'm connected to thousands. And in that connection is in my particular sandbox, and the people who I see, and the people who call themselves leftists, progressives. It's a litmus test. It's a litmus test. Whether Sanders is a part of it or not is somewhat irrelevant. From the standpoint of the 15 million people that left your party, if you're not getting behind single payer, we're not getting behind you. Feel how you feel about it. The Vermont senator himself has not explicitly said he supports the primary challenge to those who won't support or push for so-called Medicare for All healthcare plan. But there are plenty of signs that Sanders and his allies views the issue as a defining moment for Democratic lawmakers. Yes, I've just told you. Take my word for it. And I love this. This gets better. The single-payer concept is increasingly popular in the party. High-profile senators like Cory Booker, Christian Gillibrand, and Kamala Harris have expressed some support. And for the first time, majority of House Democrats now have signed on to a single-payer bill that Representative John Conyers has been introducing regularly for more than a decade. There's a great part to this right here. The fears are acute enough that when the Nevada chapter of Our Revolution, the political group spawned from the Sanders presidential campaign, endorsed long shot Jesse Spieth in the state's Democratic Senate primary over party favorite Representative Jackie Rosen. Retired former Senator Harry Reid felt the need to call Sanders directly. There's a concern that Sanders allied people will try to make a stir, said a senior Democrat aide working on the 2018 campaign. You can't just be a liberal Democrat in a lot of these states and get elected. So the question is, how do we improve the lives of people instead of playing these political games? Sanders' allies don't find that argument convincing. No, I don't find that argument convincing. I don't find that argument convincing. I think your understanding of politics is purely defined by the people who are putting money in your pocket. What you're talking about as you can't be liberal in those states or you can't be progressive in those states has nothing to do with the people of those states. It has everything to do with the people you're interacting with and hobnobbing with. And if the majority of the people, 75% of the times, these guys are begging for money. If the majority of your time is begging for money and the majority of the time is hobnobbing with people who are of means, the plutocrats, the people of means, then you're taking the perspective of those particular people. Meaning those particular people give you a certain view of the world that's not necessarily indicative of the rest of the country. I don't find your argument convincing. I don't. Which means that yes, we will make a stir. Yes, we will bitch and we will moan. We're the malcontents. We're the people who want to get things done. This particular guy says it all. You can't just be a liberal Democrat in these states and get elected. Let's put that to the test. Let's put that to the test. Be who you be and let them make a determination of whether they want to put you in that office based on who you are. Make your argument. Make your case. You guys have been running third-way Democrats for God knows how long, and you just believe that this is the way things are. Half of the electorate didn't vote in the presidential election. Think about that. Half of the country kissed off the presidency. Each year after the election, each year, the number of people who voted got less and less and less. This year being one of the most depressed. 2008 bucked the term, but it bucked the term only because you had a president who ran in this progressive rhetoric without the bona fides to back it up. I think you're wrong. I think you've lost 1,000 seats in the state legislatures. I think you've lost the House, Senate, and Supreme Court and the presidency. I think you've lost it all. I think your political methodology, if what you're saying is true, why have you lost so much? This is the thing that I don't fathom. How do you lose this much and still insist that the strategy that you're going with is just fucking awesome? How do you do that? That's an amazing blind spot to me. Look, this story wasn't necessarily about the Democratic Party's failings in a sense. Or and to some degree, maybe it is. Sanders exacerbates their failures. That's what goes on. He doesn't necessarily want Sanders to endorse somebody because it makes a clear distinction between who Sanders is versus who they are. The Democrats, the last thing they want is a third party. Sanders is an independent. If Sanders is running in any capacity outside the confines of the Democratic Party, then it looks like he's drawing people away from the party itself. If Sanders is putting his weight behind one of the primary challengers, yes, he's terrified. Joe Manchin is terrified. Why do you think he was on TYT? Us malcontents. Us misfit toys. The alt left, the base left. And yet they're concerned. They're concerned. You should be concerned, dude. It is a litmus test. It was a litmus test before or whether Bernie Sanders says anything about it at all. If you want, at the very least, consideration of a vote, the bare minimum is single payer. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's the bare minimum. You guys are quibbling over whether it's a litmus test. We're beyond the question. The answer to that question was already yes. Before this piece was out, the answer to that question was yes. Throw a rock, hit a random progressive and ask him, hey, is single payer a litmus test? Before you can get the last word out, he would say yes. He would say yes. Scorched earth, man. You get the country that you believe you own or you deserve. These guys essentially want to keep the same policies, and they want to insist to you that, hey, we can just keep going the way we're going. We just need you to vote for us. We're making the point that no, you're not going to keep going the way you're going. This needs to change. This needs to change. You go our way, or it burns. And I'm okay with that statement. Because in my mind, we're going to hit a cliff anyway. I don't necessarily want Republicans in office. I think this is the most rabid bunch of Republicans we've ever had in this particular country. But part of the reason these guys are that rabid is because the Democratic Party moves so far to the right. What do you think the Republican Party is going to do when the Democratic Party moves to the right and appropriate their positions? They're going to continue to move further to the right. Hey, if you're going to give us this much ground, if you're going to cede us to the 50-yard line, yeah, we are going to try to push further. A better deal, dude, is not enough. He's giving you the way out. The guy who you think is the problem is actually your solution. You just don't want to take it. You don't want to deal with the paradigm shift. It's your choice. The Democratic Party can go the way of the Whigs, or you guys can have some kind of revitalization. The revitalization goes through Bernie Sanders. And not necessarily him as a physical thing, just as a... I used to make this point that Rand Paul was the new Republican Party, meaning a certain strident brand of libertarianism would take over. And look, I don't necessarily think that's a horrible thing. At the very least, with libertarians, you agree with this idea of not foreign intervention and drug policy and prison system and that type of stuff. You can quibble over the other stuff, but you're going to quibble over the other stuff regardless of what party you have. These guys are dangerous. Despite these guys being dangerous, it's not a situation where the Democratic Party should be able to just not do what they were supposed to do, man. That's the point. A, you cheated that guy. You completely decapitated the political process and ended up putting Trump in that office. And in addition to putting Trump in that office, you failed on every level of government. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. The idea that you guys are terrified that the people for Sanders are going to go a different way, you should be terrified, and you should lose. If you're not going to represent the people who are putting you in that office, then they shouldn't get your vote. What you're feeling is what you should have been feeling 10, 15 years ago. Too bad it had to wait this far, or get this far to happen. But it's a good damn thing that it's happening now. Your way out is through Sanders. Your way out is through Sanders. I'll leave it at that. Let me know what you think. Look, I don't think, you know, I've been back and forth on Sanders, but I've never wavered on this idea of his impact. This is called impact. People ask, what should progressives do? I think you should organize. I think you should stop this petty quibbling. I think 99% of the people who are in what will be called the left agree. Have summits, man. Not people summits. Not have summits where you're actually pushing for platforms. Not necessarily to start a new party, but to create an edifice under the political system. Right now, the political system is in flux with cash. You can't deal with that from a standpoint of cash. You have to deal with that from a standpoint of movements, people power, getting more transparency in the political system itself, getting people themselves involved in the political process. Like I said, 50% or like 49% of the people didn't vote. It's just an amazing thing. Sanders would have pulled those people to the polls. Under the current paradigm, those Democrats are not pulling those people to the polls. I would give you advice. Sanders is your way out. Whatever you think of Bernie Sanders, his effect is real. So, I'll leave it at that. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the content, feel free to share, subscribe. You can always support the work through Patreon. Thank you.